team comps. Love them or hate them, they're a crucial part of Overwatch 2, and you're going to have to wrap your head around what compositions work and why they work if you want to get good and start climbing the ranks. So while the Overwatch esports scene takes a bit of an extended winter break, we're putting together an Overwatch 2 player's guidebook of sorts to help you navigate the game in 2024 and hopefully help you hit those rank up goals, as well as learning a little bit more about what you'll be seeing on the pro esports scene. So, kicking things off with a classic, it's a comp we've never seen the end of in Overwatch. We're talking dive. Let's get into it. But before we get into the nitty gritty of it, don't forget to dive below this video and hit that subscribe button if you want to see more vids like this from us. It's free, easy, and we would love to see you around here a bit more often. Anyway, moving on, let's start with the basics. Your standard dive team comp is built around any high mobility tank, historically being Winston or D.Va, but it's just as viable with Doomfist or Wrecking Ball if you're a glutton for punishment, with DPS backup from Genji, Tracer, or really any of your high mobility heroes that get in fast and hit hard. For the why and how of it, it's elementary mathematics. Having every member of your team swarm an individual on the other team to kill them near enough instantly will almost always lead to a net positive, provided you do it the right way. So in terms of strengths, you've got numbers moving all at once, swarming an enemy target to wipe them out in seconds, or even less than that. It has an extremely high level of mastery, and if you have the basic premise down, it can be devastating in most ranks. It does have some weaknesses though. The strength of the composition drops substantially with each teammate that's eliminated. It sometimes requires a large amount of setting up before going into a fight, and does require almost constant communication and teamwork. One hero breaking ranks can be enough to upset the whole system. So what about ways to beat it? As a team, you should be looking to play in areas that force the dive to be in exposed areas, allowing your team to potentially pick off a member of the enemy team before they have the opportunity to orchestrate the dive. Or if you fancy being a bit tricky about it, you could also put your weakest members in an open spot to invite the enemy team in and then counter-attack them while they're on your back line. In a few words then, if you have a team that's cohesive and can work together extremely well, a dive composition has generally been the best composition in the game to play. In Overwatch 1, a dive comp typically came together with the pairing of Winston and D.Va, two high mobility tanks that could generally be anywhere that they were needed and could throw themselves into the enemy team, which, fun fact, is where the dive term actually comes from. Alongside them, you'd see Genji and Tracer, two DPS characters that could move and flow around the map with next to no effort, and could pump some extra damage into the targets that were being prioritized by the tanks. To top off the team comp, you'd generally see Zenyatta, thanks to his Orb of Discord being a lot more powerful than it is now, to be fair, as well as either a Lucio, a Mercy, or even an Ana, depending on the needs of the team. The addition of new heroes like Wrecking Ball, who fit the bill as a large disruptive force that could knock people out of position, gave dive a new definition. Instead of just being a comp that revolved around quickly focusing on single targets at a time, it became a composition that relied on the rapid elimination of as many targets as possible, with the biggest strengths coming from positioning, coordination, and mobility. But then along came Overwatch 2, and things are a little bit different now. There's only one tank, obviously, on both sides, and while the definition of dive remains largely the same, it has become a bit harder to successfully pull off due to the lack of both protection and damage from the second tank no longer existing on your team. And this is where one of the weaknesses of dive becomes even more prominent. In Overwatch 1, if you lost a teammate early before a fight really got going, you could still fight with 5 people, though obviously you were at a little bit of a disadvantage. In Overwatch 2, fighting a 4v5 is a monumental task to take on because of all the burst healing and burst damage going on. The overall strength of the composition relies heavily on the amount of players that are alive on your team and moving all at once to wipe an enemy off the face of the map as quickly as you can. You lose a teammate, and all of a sudden, that time to kill gets so much longer and your chances of losing the fight skyrocket. So, in a modern game of Overwatch 2, should you find yourselves playing against a team that is trying to dive, what's your best out? Ideally, you'll want to play in areas that force them to be exposed to more angles. It gives you more space to get an early elimination onto their team and will delay the dive for substantially longer, unless they just want to throw themselves on top of you, in which case your DPS line should be able to clean up. If you mirror the composition and play the same thing into the enemy, another method of beating it would be to counter dive, meaning that you'll dive onto the enemy after they have dove onto you, and you've managed to close it down and score a pick on a decent value target. Once again, that 5v4 cannot be understated, and it can work in your favour too. So if you have a team that works together cohesively, admittedly not necessarily something you'll regularly find on the solo queue grind, but especially if you have a 5-stack, a dive comp has historically been one of, if not the, best composition you could play. It's been able to beat most of the popular team comps throughout history, with the only real exception being GOATs, and even then it was a variant of it that ended up getting the job done, with Shanghai Dragons coming out with their triple DPS and Wrecking Ball version of Dive. It could beat double shield if played properly, and in Overwatch 1 it had plenty of variations over time, with one of the more popular ones being the double bubble composition that used Winston and Zarya. Now Dive may not quite be the regular powerhouse of team comps that it once was thanks to the switch to 5v5 in Overwatch 2, but underestimate it at your peril. If you can spot the dive before it comes and make sure you know how to deal with it, you might just find yourself climbing those ranks a little bit faster than you were before. Thanks for watching, stick with us for more Overwatch 2 player guides to team comps and more. Let us know your favourite Overwatch 2 team comp down in the comments, and while you're with us here at GGRecon, maybe check out this video, where we talk about the most iconic Overwatch League players of all time.